Hey folks, I'm out here in the yard once again, and today I'm going to be showing you how to do a refurb on a wheelbarrow. This is not a chicken video, but check this out. I got chickens. I got 4 of them. Look at those birds. So I made a video a few weeks back, and I mentioned during it that when you have a wheelbarrow, over time, the nuts tend to rattle themselves loose, the thing tries to fall apart, and you got to stay on top of that. Somebody mentioned in the comments, why aren't you using Loctite? And I thought to myself, that is a fantastic idea. In fact, I don't know why I didn't think of that myself. I'm a mechanical engineer, I design machines for a living. We put Loctite on everything. So I thought to myself, this wheelbarrow needs a lot of work, not just the nuts rattling loose, but there's a lot of other problems with it. So why don't I take the time to break it all down and see if I can refurbish it and see if I can get another 5 or 10 years out of it. So I've gone ahead and flipped her over so I can show you some of the most common problems you're going to run into over the years with a wheelbarrow like this. So the first issue is nuts rattling loose and then stuff moving around on you when you don't want it to. So I've got all these 1/2 inch hex nuts all over the place. None of them are lock nuts, and over time these will loosen up and then your bracket will shift. So like this bracket here that holds the axle, you can see it's got a slot. It might be hard for you to see. The mounting holes are slotted, so this thing can move in and out, which is nice when you're getting it all aligned. But if it can be adjusted, it also can be adjusted wrong, and it likes to adjust itself into a wrong configuration given enough time. So the axle is flush on this side. If we come over to this side, we can see it's way deep in there. Like it's only maybe halfway engaged with this bracket. So this is something you have to keep an eye on, because if these little brackets wander out at all, then that axle is going to pop out and you're going to be left with no front wheel. So another issue you run into with these bolts coming loose is related to this front crossbar. You can see mine's doing it again. It's starting to kind of pivot down. And the problem with this is that if it goes far enough, it's going to hit your wheel and kind of act as a brake, and you're going to get stuck pretty quick. So not only do these nuts need to stay tight, but we need to do something else to this to eliminate that problem altogether. So I'll show you that. Another issue you'll run into is that eventually your tire will stop wanting to do its thing. This one won't hold pressure anymore. I can pump it up and the next day it's flat. Flat, flat, flat. So I am going to get rid of this tire and put on something much better. And then finally, we've got these wood handles. You can see they're very weathered. I've had this wheelbarrow probably about 8 or 9 years, since I bought the house back in 2011 or 2018 probably, so coming up on 8 years now. And over time these are going to deteriorate and eventually start to split and fail, and you'll have to replace them or replace the wheelbarrow. So we're going to try to breathe some life back into them as well. Alright, so to start with, to tear this thing apart, what I'm going to do is we're going to remove a total of 10 nuts, so 5 per side. We have 2 here on this side that fasten this rear bracket. We have 2 here that fasten this axle bracket, and then we have 1 here that fastens this front cross piece. So we've got to take all 10 of those off. Now these are carriage bolts, so the bolt head has got like a square feature on the underside of it, and that fits into a square hole on the bucket portion of the wheelbarrow, and that means you don't need to put a wrench on the head to keep it from rotating, so you can just spin the nuts right off. The other ones did not have washers, which is a little bit surprising because they are slots. You should use a washer with a slot, but whatever. Wheel. Okay, that's not a carriage bolt, it's got a slot. Okay, so find a flathead here. Nice crusty, rusty nut, or screw, I should say. Bolt? Bolt. It's a bolt. Okay, now there's goes that piece. There is a huge flat washer, call this a fender washer, on the inside of each handle, so you're going to want to get those off of there. Make sure you don't lose those. I think I'm going to leave these in place because they're kind of pressed in there and I don't want to mess that up. This should come off with a little bit of encouragement. Nope. Go. Now that I've got the handles off, I can see that we have a little bit of an issue here. This plastic piece is disintegrating a little bit. It's mostly intact, but this tip here is definitely kind of just snapped off. I don't think this is a huge deal, and what we could probably do is just glob on a bunch of silicone or epoxy or something into this joint as we reassemble it, and it probably won't come apart again. And yeah, it's trying to do the same thing over here. It'd be hard for you to see, but that's split, and that's gonna fail given enough time. These handles are in pretty sorry shape, but they seem to mostly be structurally intact. I think they can be saved. We're gonna find out. Getting started on these handles, the first thing I'm going to do is clean them up with a random orbital sander. So I put a 120 grit pad on there. We'll see how that does. Firstly, I want to take off the outer weathered layer of the wood, but then I also want to open up kind of the pores in the wood so that this oil that I'm about to brush them with is going to seep into the wood a little bit better and hopefully have a more long-lasting effect. Down, one to go. Alright, now that I got those cleaned up, I'm going to go ahead and apply a very generous coat of this stuff. Boiled linseed oil. You got to get the boiled kind. If they have regular, you want boiled. I'm going to be totally honest with you. This stuff doesn't work that well, but it is cheap. It's easy to put on, and it won't flake off. And in a few years, you can just put another coat on it. Try not to get any oil on the exposed unrusted threads here. That might interfere with the Loctite later. So see if you can keep these dry, and if you do get oil on them, I recommend using like some isopropyl alcohol or acetone or something like that, and a clean towel to clean that off as best you can. Alright, these are looking pretty great. I just did one coat, and I think I said earlier, you know, generously apply a whole bunch of oil to this. You don't want it dripping, you just want to wet it. More is just going to make it stickier. And so I am going to let these hang up and dry at least overnight. I'm not going to touch them again for the rest of today. I'm going to let that oil really soak into the wood and get dry so that it'll be less gross to handle when we put it all back together. Alright, handles are all done. Oil has dried. It's not as oily as I expected it would be. It leaves a tiny bit of residue on your fingers. I expect that will go away over the course of the first couple of weeks as it continues to dry out and gets weathered a little bit. So these are good to go on. So these plastic wedge brackets are kind of flimsy. The tip had just completely broken off on one of them. This one is starting to go the same direction. And I was looking at this and I was like, God, I'm not going to feel good about putting these back on. These are going to fail before anything else in the wheelbarrow. And so I realized I can fix this. 3D printer. So I have here a like for like, accurate to within a couple millimeters replacement that is printed out of PETG. This is like my favorite material to work with right now. It's cheap. This is 10 bucks a kilo, and tough as nails. This is not going to break. This is not going to fail. The two brackets together cost me about 5 bucks. Printed them overnight. I'm going to go ahead and get them installed. Clean that up a little bit, just using some of my usual glass spray that I use on everything. Try to do this gently so that the carriage bolts don't just fall through. It's gonna need some encouragement. There we go. Okay. So both of those are on there. Let's see if I can get this to stay up. Propping it on that block. This is the exact product you should be using for this. Blue Loctite 243. The 243 is oil resistant. This is medium strength. Well strong enough for this kind of application. Don't go with red. Red is permanent. You'll never get back apart. Who knows? You might have to rebuild a wheelbarrow again 5-10 years down the road. You're not going to want red on there. Blue 243. And this is about the right amount of Loctite for this application. You just want to get a few of the threads wetted, ideally where the nut is going to end up, and then I put a little bit of the tip here, and the nut will actually carry that with it as it spins down. You don't have to completely coat the bolt. It doesn't have to be dripping. This is plenty. Okay, start putting the nuts on. Okay, then I'm just going to make sure the carriage bolt heads are seated flush before I start tightening. Well, they're not really, but I'm going to chance it, I think. Looking pretty decent. Looks pretty good. This is a replacement wheel and tire that I bought off of Amazon to replace my wheel. This is a solid tire. There is no air port because it doesn't require any air. It can't go flat. Solid tire. It's about the same diameter, same width, same 5/8 inch axle. Alright, onto the new wheel. We're using the axle. This is a 5/8 inch diameter axle, and these end brackets, and then we've got these spacers. So we'll see if we need to add any additional spacers or if this is going to be good enough. There. Slap a couple spacers on it. And I'm actually going to fit the brackets onto this on each side, and then drop that whole mess on as one unit. You can already see that I'm going to need quite a bit more spacer here. I've got these brackets pushed in all as far as they can go, and I think that will come together a bit more once we get the end piece on there. Not by a lot though. So we're going to need to add some spacers. Now, it did come with some extra spacers, but this is what it came with. Is this even the right diameter? No, it's too big. Okay, well, let's see if they're at least the right length. Spacers on. Well, that will work, but I don't like that the spacers are way too big on the inner diameter. I'm going to go ahead and 3D print some right size spacers. Okay, design the spacers. 3D printer's warming up. Should have those in about an hour and a half. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and get this front bracket reinstalled. Slide that into place. Through. Put your big fender washer on there, don't forget those. Almost forgot the Loctite. So I mentioned before, the problem with this bracket is that as these nuts get loose, it's going to try to rotate, and as it rotates, it's going to hit the wheel and end up rubbing against it and kind of acting like a brake, which you really don't want. I suspect that even with putting Loctite on these and just tightening the hell out of it, it's still going to do that to me eventually. So what I'm going to do is pin it. I'm going to dowel it, basically, we'd call it in the industry. And basically what I'm going to do is drill a very small hole, you know, I think it's actually like a 5mm or a 0.2 inch hole right about here, and then I'm just going to put a little like 1-inch wood screw into that, and so that's going to act as like an anti-rotation feature. Drill all the way through with a small bit. We're going to widen that out on the steel portion with the bigger bit. You want to make sure you pre-drill the wood so it doesn't split. Okay. Finally, get our little baby wood screw. Gently put that in. Beautiful. Alright, we got our new 3D printed spacers. 3.4 inches was the ideal length for me, I think. I'm going to post all these files for 3D printed parts on my Thingiverse page after this, so that if you have the same wheelbarrow, you can download these and print them. Yeah, that is just about perfect. So you can see the bolts are kind of like all the way off to the inside of the slot, which means this bracket can't really go out any further, which means it is not going to separate and let the axle out. So this should be pretty much foolproof at this point. Still got some wet Loctite on the threads, so I'm not going to put more on there. Sweet. Alright, that's about it. Took about an hour total. Wheelbarrow has a new lease on life, and I'm pretty happy with the result. If you like what you saw here, I'd appreciate if you could drop me a like on this video, and if you want to see more content like this in the future, I'd appreciate if you could give me a subscribe as well. And then finally, if you had any questions about this project, or just had any other insight you want to offer, I'd appreciate if you could leave a comment down below. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.